Welcome to Everything You Need is Inside. I'm your host, Olivia Young, and I'm so excited to welcome Dr. Lauryn Lax today on our show. She is a functional medicine practitioner and wellness entrepreneur, gut health specialist. So Lauryn very much lives by the idea of trusting your gut, and I believe that's why we met and why we constantly have these really interesting conversations about life and our connection to self and higher self.
Yes, 100%.
So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I love this.
Yeah,
so
me
much
too.
fun.
And we're in my home, which is even more intimate because I believe that these are our homes, but there's something about welcoming someone else into your home, be it like your physical home, but also like your home.
Definitely.
That is special. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for hosting.
Lauryn has a really unique story with twists and turns and almost the way that you've been about to kind of get where you are now. So could you just tell us a little bit about how you got into gut health and medicine?
Yeah, I think gut health honestly found me, and I date back my story of getting into what I'm doing back to like age 6 when I couldn't even poop at that time. And so I was like the classically like constipated kid growing up and just feeling at unrest with my body really. And going to doctors and then just telling me to eat like Fiber One cereal or like Papa Tom's. And so very symptom-based treatment early on for healing my gut and just feeling really disconnected with my gut at that age. Well, fast forward to age 10 years old and I'm at recess and 4th grade recess and pink scrunchie in my frizzy hair that my mom made me wear. And all I wanted to do was fit in. Just felt really at unrest with self. And the popular girls that day invited me to join their gossip circle, where we're like laughing at Melanie Strawn's ugly sweater and gawking over Eric Arthur's cute freckly face and floppy ears. And then the topic of weight comes up. And the queen bee says, oh my gosh, you guys, I weighed myself last night and I'm 69 pounds. So fat.
And this was at 10 years old?
10 years old.
Okay.
And then just turning to each of us and just saying, what do you weigh? And one by one, we had to go around the gossip circle and report to our drill sergeant. And at a healthy 80 pounds as a 10-year-old girl, I was by no means a fat kid, but when the circle got to me, I gulped and I lied. And I looked down at my feet and just said, I don't know. And I'll never forget going home that day and standing in the pantry and turning over my favorite Doritos snack pack and learning a brand new language, which is fat grams and calories. And at age 10, my life path took a very sharp turn, and that complete disconnection from self and from gut and just wanting to be good enough. And the twists and turns really began. Little did I realize I'd spend the next 15 years of my life on a roller coaster of diets and dogmas and Dr. Google searches, like looking everywhere else outside of myself for answers to feeling good in my own skin. I could have won the gold in the Stairmaster Olympics that like I was just so obsessed with working out as well. And like my dog Bentley gained 10 pounds in spaghetti and meatball weight that I sneakily threw onto the floor. And just all these habits were going on in the background until my parents caught on and took me to the doctor. And like, long story short, I was diagnosed with anorexia. Never heard of that term before in my life.
How old were you when that?
That was 11.
Okay.
And so, months later, like just a few months in, they told me that like, Lauryn, you could die from this. And at age 11, you just don't think about death ever. And so like, I just thought like, oh, they're trying to take my goal away. I ended up going into the hospital for the first time at age 11. And it was the first time I'd been away from home for more than like a sleepover. And them just giving me journals, and they said, write. And I was on bed rest, eating like 6 meals a day in bed, and just like started to like really like come to Jesus moment there. Just like really process what was going on inside.
As an 11-year-old.
As an 11-year-old.
Okay.
But just like so much just continued disconnection with self and gut, because the typical treatment model for eating disorders, if you're not familiar, is Pop-Tarts, pizza, and Prozac, literally, and very symptoms-based treatment. Kind of like the take a pill for an ill for a person that has like a chronic lifestyle-induced disease today, or the person that's like just move more and eat less for someone that's overweight. Of course, we know 95% of diets fail. My symptoms were treated with what made the most sense for food freedom and weight gain, which was processed foods, No.
Were you in an outpatient facility at 11?
No, this was in a hospital setting.
Okay.
Did many stints after that as well. Literally though, like that moment that time is, they plated me 4 Pop-Tarts, I remember, in one setting. And like that just completely set me on a different path of being like, there's something not right about this treatment. And like, I think really set me up for what I'm doing today. Functional medicine, looking to the root cause versus addressing symptoms. So like that just maybe distrust or like curiosity disruptor in me was really born then. And again, still feeling completely disconnected from my gut, and like the symptoms-based model was not really like getting to the root cause, nor was my eating disorder. I would spend the next 15 years up and down on this roller coaster, but 4 years of those like accumulated behind bars inside hospitals and treatment centers, and just really like kind of going in and out. And really, it was no longer about the queen bee by the time I was like 20 years old, 22, 23. It really was a sense of control and identity. If you're familiar with Tony Robbins' work, he talks about the 6 like human needs. And I was definitely getting my need for security met through, and worth met through my eating disorder. There's always this dangling carrot of like, when I look like this, or when I am fitter, then life will be great. And just nowadays working with clients, it's the grass is greener when this happens, kind of philosophy that really drove me. Fast forward to age 23. And I am in my going into my second year of grad school. I was studying occupational therapy in Nashville, and former journalist actually, but somehow like someone upstairs just knew I was going to be on a different path as well. But all that to say, I stepped on the scale the day before my second year was supposed to start, only to see a number I had not seen since I was a 10-year-old girl. And only this time I was 23, full-fledged adult. And for the first time in that journey, it scared me. It was no longer my parents telling me like just to eat more, or even a doctor standing over me just saying like, you're not healthy. It was just like, well, this explains the chest pains I've been having. This explains like why I feel like I have a knife in my stomach every time I eat something. My body was shutting down. Stress fractured feet, like running at 10 miles per hour every day on a treadmill and working out 8 hours a day. And so I got into the car to drive to the gym at 5 a.m. that morning, and I actually started going towards one gym, and then something in me was like, oh, I want to go to the Stairmaster. So I started, like, it whipped me around, and I started going to the YMCA. I was in Nashville, and never forget praying, like, God, help me make a change today, and like yelling this out loud while I'm in the car, and just like saying like, you got this, Lauren, you got this, and just pepping myself up like Rocky. And thinking a change meant help me eat a tablespoon of almond butter more today, or help me just work out 30 minutes less on my Stairmaster. The little things I could do, I thought I could do.
Almost like relinquish control.
Exactly.
Even though you were still like gripping for control.
And it was just it was controlling me, obviously. And when I got to the gym parking lot, I step out of my car and start gathering my magazines, like my fitness magazines. I would read like the Bible on my Stairmaster for hours every morning. And not one, but 9 other strangers walk up and say, good morning, Lauren. And I turn and whip my head around. It's like super dark outside, and see these 9 gym-goer strangers that are about my parents' age. I had just seen as acquaintances all that past year. And they stepped in and spoke up and said they wanted to help. And
they were watching over you.
100%.
Yeah.
And they said that they had all just come together the night before, just like via phone and texting, and just say, hey, do you see that girl at the gym? And I had been on all of their hearts without them even saying anything until that time. And they said, like, Lauren, we don't know what we would do if we were to see you collapse on the Stairmaster. And we want to help you. And we've called Vanderbilt Hospital, and they said we can bring you in. And when I heard the word hospital, I just like death grip my keys and just think like, they know nothing about my history. They just see a girl struggling for her life. And I call them my YMCA angels today, because within the next 48 hours, I found myself in the ICU with a heart rate in the near 20s, and doctors saying I may not make it. And just know without a doubt, I would not be here today. And as those doctors and those nurses are just like going around in the room and just like saying we may need to call code blue, my parents were there by my bedside at the time, and just feeling like a complete out-of-body experience, something inside me felt so settled and knew that no matter what, life was going to be different on the other side. And in that moment, just got this download of like, Lauren, I've got this, but buckle up because it's going to be a ride.
And it's what you asked for,
yeah,
too, without knowing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and just like the trust your gut, like it was so paved away along the way, even in that like journey of just turning around the car to go to this gym that day. And then that gut feeling that I got that moment when my life is like at stake and just knowing like life is going to be different, that light bulb switch is what really propelled me through I would spend the next year in treatment, like a full year in treatment, doing all the things that I'd always done, like Egg McMuffin Friday mornings and Eggo Waffle Tuesday, Thursdays. And just like there was no difference in what the treatment was or my external world, but something inside me had changed. And it was driven to find that something different. And so went through that experience. And then on the other side of treatment, like you would think like rainbows and butterflies, like I'm healed, whole. I was living in Miami, actually, at the time. That's where I did treatment. And little did I know that there would be another battle ahead, like another journey, part 2 of the story, which is what I call post-recovery recovery.
Before you get there,
yeah,
let's just digest what you just said. Well, first of all, I'm so glad you're here.
Totally.
And I think that you bring so much light to so many people's lives. And I think that you stand for such a connection to the greater existence of something much bigger than us. And I honor you for being so brave to share this, and also having had the courage as like a 4th grader to even sense that that something was wrong at the playground, and also not knowing enough to know that like the road that you ended up taking was a result of feeling so insignificant in your own life. And I know that like bullying is such an intense experience, and I don't believe it's just in the playground. I think it really can show up everywhere and anywhere, and I think it's a result of just people being in pain who want to give their pain and pass their pain to someone else.
100%.
So I mean,
projection.
yeah, and for what you've carried and then since let go, I think it's really admirable. And now to have made this your work is really beautiful. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you.
I mean, it's profound in the way that like 15 years. Like I know that an eating disorder too. It's something that it affects millions and millions, if not more. And it's always typically like there's a root cause of it, whether it's not feeling accepted, wanting to feel out of your body, trauma related, and escape from your body, control, whatever it looks like. So to have had that experience at such a young age is, it makes me sad. But it also brings, I think, joy and hope knowing that there is the light on the other side.
Oh yeah, I'm so thankful for the journey and like all of the journeys that we all go through, because there's always learnings, I think, from them if we choose to learn from them and to know life is happening for us, not to us. I have no idea what my life would have been like without all the like quote unquote like hardship or struggle, because it's just what has shaped me. Yeah. Exactly.
Same. Totally. And also going back to that, like, as you say, trust your gut, as I say, everything you need is inside. It's just this strange, I think, connecting to something much greater than ourselves, but also like that knowing, that gnosis that like we have our answers, we have our tools. No one else can give us those answers or those tools or heal us or save us, but they can hold us on our journey.
Right.
And so tell me about part 2.
Yeah. So part 2 is getting out of treatment, starting a new life in Miami, being the happiest I've ever been in my life at that time. And it's just like what found me would be my functional medicine journey in the next 10 years. And post-recovery, what happens to your body after just years of like self-neglect and like not taking care of it. And whether you have an eating disorder, you grew up as like a processed food kid generation, antibiotics, or like lived a lifestyle that was not conducive to health, or just very stress oriented, like it caught up with me. And so ended up being diagnosed with 12 incurable conditions that like doctors really could not explain over that time frame, and like 5 autoimmune diseases, and then Lyme disease and mold illness and hypothyroidism and diabetes, and just like things that like you just, I don't know, you read about in chronic illness literature, we know about that Americans deal with. I'm so thankful that I actually got to experience a lot of these, because a lot of times my clients come to me with a variety of symptomologies. the body keeps the score is what I discovered as well. So a lot of times issues in our tissues are like from like that gut-brain axis or stressors in our life. And so suffice all to say, I ended up being diagnosed with these like 12 incurable conditions and then some like just random anemias or like migraines, things that I just never had before. And that brought me to like age 33. So like exactly 10 years later, where I'm flat on my back again in a hospital bed. And the doctor's saying, Lauren, there's times conventional medicine will fail you. This is one of them. And what had led me there was like a significant event where I felt like I was having a heart attack. It ended up being a very severe asthma attack. Had never had asthma in my life. I was living in a toxic mold home at the time. No one had ever triaged that. And yet, again, something inside me, when he said that, lit a fire in my belly to just say, I am going to figure this out and life is going to be different on the other side. So again, another no more moment. And I said fire in my belly, like literally that's what I felt, very sacral led. And so with that decision came really healing. And it was like changing my story of like, I am healed. When given the right tools, your body innately wants to heal itself. I 100% believe that and learned that. And it wasn't just rah pep talk with my brain that healed me. But that decision and that story change and shift is what allowed a lot of the tools that I began to use for detoxing from mold or to healing Lyme or even dietary shifts and changes began to actually stick in the body and work, because my body was no longer in this fight or flight place. Which led me to where I'm at today. And all along the way of that 10 years, I'd actually started my practitioner journey, was working as a functional medicine practitioner, nutritionist, therapist, coach. And like my body was teaching me the whole time too.
I think that's so funny though, because like we teach what we need to learn.
Exactly.
And it's also, I think that it's so interesting. There's so many healers in so many spaces, but I firmly believe that for a healer to be able to heal, they have to have at least had some experience in healing their own wounds. It's really easy to tell someone else what to do, but if you're not willing to take that journey yourself, then you have no skin in the game, right?
100%.
Yeah. So I know that you have like a very intense movement practice and a deep connection to spirituality, and very regimented in the way that you eat and everything that you do. And I know that this is a product of coming back in to re-inhabit this home so that you can really take care of yourself from a knowing place. Right. So what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just feels good to feel good. And I feel like so many people in their life walk through it, sleepwalking through it, or just like numbing, or like maybe seeking highs that are outside of their body or their self. And there's time and a place for certain things, but it's just, I love to feel grounded and present, because I was so non-present for most of my life, and awake to it and alive. And I love, as you know, not sleeping, because I just love life so much and I have so much energy for it. There was actually a proverb I read this morning, and it was talking about how like a happy heart or cheerful heart is the best medicine, and like that a weakened spirit and a sad spirit dries up the bones. And so I do believe like happiness internally is what has propelled me to heal as well, and just like continues to drive me. And so what I do is not regimented in my mind. It's just like how like I know my body operates and feels the best. From a
I like that you honor that first, and second, like in terms of the quote that you mentioned, when I think about like anxiety as the silent killer, or stress as the silent killer, that like people that carry the weight of that, the stress, the anxiety, the fear, they either shrivel or they literally like blow up and expand, and because they're eating the stress, or they're just like withering away in this darkness.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was giving you an example before we started recording of a client that like had been just in a place of unwellness, like whether it was mold or Lyme, whatever was going on, and had adopted a very restrictive diet. And so there was just a lot of stress charge around all of those variables, and just like trying to be regimented. Recently like gave up the diet, like, because he's done a lot of healing work as well, to realize like his body's actually healed already, and he's been holding on to the past, so looking back versus looking forward, and adopted a new diet that like maybe is not the like quote unquote the healthiest diet, where he's eating a frost-free Pop-Tart in the morning and a scoop of peanut butter, and then chicken and rice and vegetables and blah, blah, blah throughout the day. But I just was like, you go, man, and like gave him props on that. And and it was such a like lift off for him to be like, yeah, I am actually healed.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like how like there is a story about get up the mat and walk in the Bible where there's a person like that's lame and can't walk. And Christ is like, dude, you're already healed, just walk and
get up, go.
We already have tools. Sometimes we hold on to old stories, and that's what keeps us more stuck than the body is.
Yeah,
so.
It's everything that you're saying comes to me as just this word flexibility, because I firmly believe that flexibility is a way of being. It's not the ability to touch your toes. So often, I know we met at a yoga class, and because we both practice yoga, and I am. Yoga is certainly one of my religions, no doubt. But when I think about yoga, and when I often say to people, well, just come with me. They're like, oh, I can't even touch my toes. And even that response is so rigid. Like literally just trying something different, or the ability to move in a way that like just sort of elicits flow as opposed to the rigidity of either lifting a weight or just not trying something, or like either physically, energetically, whatever it is. There's such a rigidity attached to it that I think life doesn't allow for when you're sort of in the moment. So even like diet, when I think about how I eat now, it's so different than what I used to, or how I used to, because I literally am like, what are you hungry for?
Yeah.
Like I talk to myself all day long.
Exactly.
And we all do, but it's typically in our head, and it's often negative self-talk.
Right.
But like feeding ourselves with what we like need and what we desire, as opposed to like what we think we should. Like feeding from our mind as opposed to feeding for our body.
100%.
Yeah.
Like getting in. That made me think of like I've recently started dance class again. Like I've danced growing up, and just like it's so fun to just show up and like shake your tail feather, or Space Jam the other day with the little palm routine. So that was super fun. And same thing with food. Actually, it was drilled into me in treatment. That was actually a positive thing that was drilled in. But every meal, like every single breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we had to all meet in a circle, like 12 girls, and just say like, how do you feel about the meal? What's your level of hunger and fullness right now? We'd all be like, I'm like a 10. I'm stuffed all the time. Really. But it just got me into this now ingrained habit where it is checking in with body and self, and being more connected and similarly.
An intention. It's like, why do we move the way that we move? Why do we eat the way that we eat? Why do we relate or communicate or spend time or energy with certain people? Like I always say like the shoulds are, they're the shackles. Like the have-tos are our handcuffs, because when you're using that sort of language, you're telling yourself that you have to. There's a rigidity around it instead of a choice. And ultimately, like we choose to feed ourselves, we choose to move. And when it gets into that have to, should, our bodies respond differently as we're moving. Like if you have to go to dance class, the dance class is going to be less enjoyable because you're not choosing that.
Right.
You know, your body, you're not moving with your body, you're moving against your body.
100%.
So I think that's where the trust piece comes in. And I believe trust, like resilience, is another muscle to flex. And it's almost the most challenging too, because we've been so conditioned to not trust ourselves. And society is constantly like reminding us that we're not good enough, or that there's somebody else that's better, or that our body should look differently, or that we should eat this if we want this. And I would love to learn how, granted you've had this like really interesting journey, but going back to that self-trust piece, like what does that look like for you? Is it the constant conversation? Is it reliance on something greater? Is it all of the above?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's so great. Trust, I mean, ultimately is connection with a source. And so like my source is like God and Christ. And so like that, the Holy Spirit lives inside me, and like the gut in and of itself is just so comprehensive. We're talking physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, like it's all housed here. And so I love doing, like daily, I have a breath prayer practice, which is like brain dumping out, like what is like the negative maybe energy here, or the worries and the stresses and or hopes and dreams at his feet, as well as God winks, like thank you for this, and just being very attuned to that. I feel like every day I'm on Mission Possible now, of just like, you know, what is possible in life. And I also believe like law of assumption prayer. And so like, so as we assume it is. And so if we see something being, it can be like, and this can be in any like field or sector. If we're talking like career path, if we're talking relationships, if we're talking health, and the whole health journey, like, really just taught me that, of like coming from death to life, not once but twice as well. And so it is just, I think, belief. It's like believing without seeing, and like trusting that I'm being held and that life is happening for us, not to us, every day. And every time something maybe even like unpositive seemingly happens, I just ask, what is the opportunity here? Like with COVID, what is the opportunity here? I ended up recording a year's worth of podcasts during that time. I think I wrote 2 books, and I got some really badass workouts in. And it's just like, I knew like, yeah, I was going to use that time effectively. If I get a flat tire, like, what is the opportunity here?
Slow down, cowgirl.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I went on a run the other day, and I was so grateful because I had come out of this like very dark, almost just like tunnel of like this growth and this, this fire and just this heavy emotion through my own healing journey and course. And I just leapt out of my apartment. I hadn't run in weeks, and I felt so free and light. And as I'm running, I get this like look up at the sky, because I really, as you know, firmly believe in like Father Sky, Mother Earth, and like just honoring, like, thank you. And in that, I have this quote that I often say in my head of like, when we stop looking down, things start looking up. And I was saying it to myself, and in that moment, I fell flat on my face over a piece of metal that had been blown down the night before, because this was like the tornado warnings. And like flat on my face, bruised like the bone pretty intensely on my shin, and then like dusted off, ran 6 miles, whatever it was. But it was just that perfect moment of like, and this has just been true in my own experience, is like, the moment that we get too far up, like the phoenix and the sun, it's like, yes, look up, and like all this grace, but also like the ground is right here. So it's like, for me, the reminder of staying balanced, of like the knowing that there's something so much greater than us carrying us, and that like it is our choice, and we also have the sovereign ability to like make the choices. And in that moment, the sign really was, yes, stay balanced, but also like, slow down, cowgirl.
Yeah.
Like all the things that you want and all the things that you're working towards and creating, it's all happening for me, and it's not on my timeline.
Right.
So it was just like another great reminder of like this deep trust and knowing, but also like you got to stay grounded in order like to grow.
Those little spotty lessons in the day.
Yeah, and the big bruise on the leg.
Yeah, exactly.
To show for it.
Yeah. I always like to reflect, like, what is like 1 or 2 things I learned today, kind of thing at the end of the day.
And there's usually way more than 2.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I know that, so after you practice yoga, you typically end your day in the sauna.
Love a good sauna.
Tell us about the sauna.
Yeah, the sauna is just like, I found it while I was detoxing from mold during COVID, actually. And it was like one of the only places that was open too during that time. So I'd always go to the sauna studio, and it just became a routine where it is my like one of my meditative places. I would say movement is always meditation for me as well. It's a great reflection space, or just a time for me to create. A lot of times I'll write in the sauna as well, and the thoughts just flow. And so, but I mean, it is like a cleansing. Obviously, you're cleansing out toxins physically, but it's also just like a great way to cleanse my thoughts and to just really feel grounded. Both, like, I've started a morning practice with it as well, and it's just energizing in the morning and very like calming in the evening. I think it just really is aligned with your circadian rhythms, because during the day we obviously should have more energy in the morning, and then at night we're ready to wind down.
Interesting. And with that too, I want to just touch back, because I have a feeling that there's curiosity around like diet.
Yeah.
And as a functional medicine practitioner, and we're talking eating disorder and recovery and coming back into your body and trusting your gut. So when I look at food, like I said, and I say this so sweepingly, like people understand, and like checking with my body to choose what to eat and not being rigid around it, because I love food. So many people come and ask, well, what should I eat?
Right.
And so I know that like you typically eat like pretty high protein, high fat.
Yeah. I templated just like real food.
Like
if it didn't grow on the ground, swim in the sea, roam the earth, it's not real food. 80-20 balance.
Yeah.
Like no perfection. When in Rome, try the pasta. On your birthday, have the whatever treat you want to enjoy. And just live. If you go to a restaurant with friends and they're cooking in a canola oil, like, it's okay.
Right.
It'll be okay.
Yeah, I think like back to like really finding like what really matters.
Yeah.
And in that moment, honoring that, like, it's okay.
Totally.
It's okay.
I mean, the body, I think a little dirt actually didn't hurt, because the cleaner we are, the sicker we become. That's the hygiene hypothesis. If you're familiar with that, it's like from a sanitation perspective, if you're overly washing your hands, you're overly using these antibacterial soaps, you lose some immunity. Whereas those that like are in the dirt, or just the kids that are exposed to other kids earlier on, etc., like they have more resiliency from an immune perspective. So I think the same can apply to food. The cleaner or stricter we become, the like more narrow the diet gets, versus the opposite.
It's funny. True fact. I don't wash my vegetables.
Oh, yeah.
And my mother is like very anal about germs, and I don't know. I think this can taste good.
Yeah.
And if you cook it, whatever.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, I love to buy as local as possible.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I know. So Lauryn also was the person who introduced me to Red Rocks Church, which has been such an interesting journey, being that I grew up Jewish and I am Jewish and I'm so proud to be Jewish. But I think that for me, spirituality really spans the gamut of just honoring God. And that, like, to me is also, you know, God in every form, and God in like mysticism and Buddhism and Christianity and Judaism and spirituality as a whole. But I know that, you know, being with you at Red Rocks and like feeling the music and the energy, it's been such a healing path in a way of just opening up perspective of the vastness that is just trust and belief in something much greater and a greater source.
100%. It's been so fun to have you, like, as a friend there. And, you know, like, I grew up Jewish as well. Like, that's part of my heritage. Like, I'm a halvesies. So, yeah, just bridge the gap there.
Right. With that, I want to just honor that if you are suffering from a disorder, from an eating disorder specifically, to find courage through the shame and seek out help, because you are certainly not alone, and it's something that affects millions and millions of people. And Lauryn is a beautiful testament to the healing process going through that. And as someone who has experience in that as a result of pretty violent trauma that sparked that journey for me, of body dysmorphia, not feeling comfortable in my own skin, I can tell you that finding love for your body, for our bodies, is the greatest gift. So you are not alone, and seek out help if that feels necessary to you. And seek out Lauryn should you be looking for a functional medicine practitioner. Where can they find you?
Dr. Lauryn is my handle on every pretty social media channel. So Lauryn spelled with a Y, Lauryn, and then my website's drlauryn.com, and my new website's totalgutreset.com.
Beautiful.
As well.
So this beautiful woman is a testament of learning to trust your gut, trust yourself, and that everything you need is really inside. So
100%.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. So fun.